Reborn, I'm no longer foolish. In my past life, my maiden heart was completely given to Ethan Hayes, and I was determined to marry him at any cost. But that marriage was nothing short of a living hell, turning me into a mere slave. My family was already struggling. My father was disabled, his legs permanently damaged after an accident. My mother was blind, darkness eternally shrouding her eyes. On top of that, my daughter was frail, constantly ill, and the heavy burden of a twisted life weighed on my slender shoulders. I had to abandon all my dreams and aspirations. I dedicated myself to serving the Hayes family until my very last breath. But who would have thought that after 30 long, arduous years, Ethan Hayes would choose to die for his first love, Lily Jiang, for the pure and radiant figure he always cherished in his heart. After his death, the adopted daughter I had loved and cared for with all my heart harbored deep hatred for me, wishing nothing more than to push me into the grave. She claimed, "If you hadn't usurped Aunt Yvonne's position, my father wouldn't have lived a life of regret, unable to be buried beside Aunt Yvonne even in death." The child heartlessly pulled out my oxygen tube, snatching away my life with venomous words. "A person like you doesn't deserve to live in this world." When I opened my eyes again, a miracle had happened. I had returned to the past, 30 years ago, to the very day I cried and made a scene, demanding to marry Ethan Hayes. But this time, I shed no tears, felt no anger, caused no destruction. Instead, I calmly ran to the house next door, found my father's colleague's son, and asked, "When we were children, you once said you wanted to marry me. Does that promise still hold true?" Ethan Hayes furrowed his brows, his face etched with annoyance. "Jade Shen, it's fine if you want to marry me, but you should be aware of my family's circumstances. My family is poor, we don't have a penny for a betrothal gift, and a grand wedding ceremony is certainly not something you should dream about. However, your dowry is indispensable. It must be at least 1,000 yuan. He continued, his tone somewhat soft. "You know my father broke his leg and has difficulty walking, my mother is blind in one eye and can't see the light, and my daughter is constantly sick, hospitalized every other day. My meager salary is simply not enough to cover our living expenses." He emphasized again, his tone becoming arrogant. "You absolutely must bring a generous dowry, otherwise, don't even think about stepping foot into the Hayes family home." As he spoke, he raised his head, observing my reaction, smugly confident that victory was in his grasp. He subtly adjusted his glasses on the bridge of his nose, his voice condescending as if bestowing a great favor. "My agreeing to marry you is already a great favor. Don't dream of anything more extravagant." Looking at the man before me, he seemed refined and polite with his faded work shirt and old black-rimmed glasses. I suddenly felt a wave of shock and panic. The white porcelain cup on the table brought me back to reality, making me realize that I had truly been reborn. Reborn to 30 years ago, the day I cried and screamed, demanding to marry Ethan Hayes. The day my father had to humble himself, setting aside his pride, to beg Ethan to come to our house and propose. I knew that Ethan Hayes had a first love, his own white moonlight. But for the sake of her future and reputation, that girl had coldly left him, marrying the union leader, Mr. Yun. Deeply hurt, he decided to marry just any woman to fill the void in his heart. But that woman, after giving birth, couldn't endure the chaotic, impoverished life in his family and divorced him. Since then, Ethan Hayes had to shoulder the responsibility of caring for his disabled father, blind mother, and frail daughter all by himself. These difficult circumstances meant no ordinary woman dared to marry him. Yet I had secretly adored Ethan Hayes since childhood. He was handsome, intelligent, and once even fought off mischievous friends to protect me. His dashing and strong appearance as he defended me had been etched into my heart ever since. However, I knew my own appearance was very ordinary, my looks nothing remarkable, so I never dared to dream of walking alongside him. Now, with his circumstances so dire, I secretly rejoiced that my chance had come. As soon as he divorced, I forced my father to beg him to propose to me. For this, I went on a hunger strike, even attempting suicide to coerce my family. My father, pushed to his limit, had no choice but to abandon his male pride, standing outside the Hayes family home all night long. He even promised and guaranteed that as long as Ethan Hayes agreed to marry me, all conditions would be accepted. 3 years prior, my father had quit his job at the textile factory to start his own business. With some luck, he had earned a small sum. Our family's savings at the time amounted to about 1,000 yuan. When Ethan Hayes had just divorced his wife, I ran to him and told him. I said that as long as he agreed to marry me, I would ask my father to give him 1,000 yuan as a dowry. That was our family's entire fortune accumulated over the years. At that moment, a flicker of greed appeared in his eyes, but as soon as he saw my face, he frowned again and coldly uttered, "Impossible." Heartbroken, I returned home in despair and began my hunger strike, seeking death. Seeing that I still had no reaction, Ethan Hayes became so angry he almost vomited blood. He sprang to his feet. "Jade Shen, if you're so determined, then so be it," Ethan Hayes said indifferently. He finished speaking, hastily stood up, and turned to leave. I sat motionless on the old long bench, my eyes glazed over as I watched his retreating figure disappear. After only a few steps, he suddenly stopped, turned sharply to look at me, his gaze scrutinizing. "Jade Shen, my patience has its limits. I'll give you 3 days to bring 1,000 yuan to my house. Otherwise, don't even dream of stepping through my door as a daughter-in-law." I looked at the face I once painted as refined. Memories from my previous life flooded back, dense and painful. Aside from his fairer skin, seemingly good grades, squinted eyes, and flat nose, there was nothing that could be called handsome. It turned out that when in love, one's mind automatically creates a rose-tinted filter, embellishing the other person with qualities that aren't real. After dying once, I realized how foolish I had been to be so infatuated with such a scoundrel. I stood up, offering a faint smile. "No need for 3 days, I'll give you my answer now." Ethan Hayes' unpleasant expression finally relaxed. He extended his hand towards me, a triumphant look on his face. "Oh, are you going to give me the money now? I'm telling you beforehand, not a single yuan less than 1,000, all right?" He then glanced around our living room, his covetous gaze lingering on the worn leather sofa. "This sofa still seems new, doesn't it? Just bring it as part of the dowry on our wedding day. Also, this TV, though a bit small, is still a TV to watch. I won't complain about your old things. The refrigerator, too, just move everything to my house. After we're married, when your father's business improves, he can buy new things for us." He spoke with such a natural tone, as if it were obvious, a right he was inherently entitled to. In my previous life, a similar scene played out. He came to propose, and the moment he opened his mouth, I eagerly agreed. I not only gave him 1,000 yuan, but also moved all the household appliances, items my father had worked tirelessly for 3 years to buy, to the Hayes family as my dowry. That marriage impoverished my father, while the Hayes family quickly prospered. He still had his hand outstretched. Seeing me standing still, he urged, "Why are you just standing there? Go get the money." "Get your mother's money?" I raised my hand and slapped him squarely across the face, a resounding blow. I pointed directly at the door and ordered him to get out. "Ethan Hayes, if your house doesn't have a mirror, surely it has a puddle of water. Why don't you look at yourself and see if you're worth 1,000 yuan? If you don't want to marry me, I don't even care to marry you." Ethan Hayes clutched his stinging cheek, staring at me in disbelief. He never imagined I would dare to hit him. After regaining his composure, he gritted his teeth. "Jade Shen, are you crazy? You were the one who desperately insisted on marrying me. What kind of game are you playing now? I'm telling you, for this slap, your dowry must increase by at least 500 yuan, otherwise there's nothing to discuss." With that, he furiously brushed his sleeve and stormed off. Ethan's mother hurriedly chased after him, grabbing his arm. "Son, you haven't gotten the money yet. Why are you leaving like this?" She ran after Ethan Hayes, earnestly persuading him, "Go back and coax her. She's a girl, a few sweet words will do the trick." "I'm not going." Ethan Hayes shook his mother's hand away, his face annoyed. Ethan's mother stomped her foot in frustration. "In this village, her family is the only one with good conditions. If you mess this up, where will you find another family with such good conditions?" Ethan's mother confidently declared, "She'll come crying and begging you. Jade Shen is head over heels in love with you. Just ignore her for a few days, and she won't be able to stand it. She'll cry and beg you to marry her. By then, let alone an extra 500 yuan for the dowry, even if it's 1,000 more, she'll force her father to come up with it." He pulled his mother's hand, his face full of confidence and calculation. "Don't worry, mother." Ethan Hayes spoke very softly, but my hearing was exceptionally sharp. I heard every single word he said, clear as day. Seeing his certainty, I knew he too had been reborn, had lived this life once before. My father stood beside me, silent, observing everything. Only when Ethan Hayes's figure had completely vanished did he raise a hand to my forehead. "Daughter, do you have a fever?" Facing his astonished gaze, I knew what he was thinking. He couldn't comprehend why yesterday I was determined to marry Ethan Hayes to the point of death, but today I was suddenly strangely lucid. Looking at my father's prematurely graying hair, my eyes stung with tears. My mother had passed away early. For years, my father had played both father and mother, raising me alone. He saw that I lacked a mother's affection from a young age, so he indulged my every whim. In my previous life, after I stepped through the Hayes family's door and married Ethan Hayes, my life was nothing short of a living hell. He seemed to completely ignore my existence, overlooking the sacrifices I made. Half of his meager monthly salary went to his white moonlight, while the other half he hoarded for himself, sharing not a single cent with me. Not only that, I had to strain myself, managing and serving his entire family. From big matters to small, no one cared about my hardships. Witnessing his daughter's miserable life, my father was utterly heartbroken. He worked tirelessly, even risking his life to earn money, hoping only to provide for me and compensate me somewhat. He himself was incredibly frugal, never daring to eat a delicious piece of meat. He wore only old, tattered clothes, and even when ill, he tried to endure it, not daring to visit a hospital for fear of the expense. Finally, due to overwork and accumulated illness, he collapsed and never woke up again. That was the 10th year after my marriage, a painful milestone etched deeply into my mind. He passed away before the age of 50, leaving me alone and adrift in the world. In his final moments, he gripped my hand, his eyes brimming with tears, choking out, "My daughter, I'm gone. What will you do?" Those words were laden with worry and helplessness for me, the daughter he loved above all else. In my past life, I was the one who implicated him, pushing him to his limits. In this life, I swore I wouldn't let that happen again. I quickly shook my head, reassuring him, "Dad, I'm fine, I'm healthy, don't worry about me." He looked towards the door, a hint of suspicion in his eyes. "Ethan Hayes really left, son?" Before he could finish his sentence, I quickly interrupted, not wanting him to worry. "Dad, I've thought it through. I'm not marrying him anymore, Dad." I tightly gripped his hand, my eyes resolute. "I want to work with you, Dad. I want to build a career with you." My father traveled year-round for business. Living in a family with a tradition of entrepreneurship from a young age, drip by drip makes a flood, and business knowledge gradually seeped into my blood. Every time I offered an idea or suggestion, it helped him earn a considerable sum. He often reminded me, wanting to take me with him to navigate the business world together. He said, "Once we earn a lot of money, I'll take you to big cities to broaden your horizons, meet more people. Life won't be confined to a small corner like this anymore. By then, whether you choose Ethan Hayes or someone better than him, I will respect your decision." However, in my previous life, my eyes only saw Ethan Hayes, my reason blinded by foolish love. Whenever my father brought up business, I would show annoyance, even snapping at him. "I'm a girl, why do I need to earn money? Isn't the money you earn going to be mine anyway?" He tried hard to persuade me that women couldn't rely on men their whole lives, that doing so would make them lose their self-worth and dignity. I became so irritated by his words that I couldn't control myself and shouted harsh words at him. "David Shen, you're saying so much, aren't you just trying to avoid caring for me anymore? You want to find me a stepmother and then have another son, don't you?" I continued in a resentful tone. "Have you forgotten how my mother died? She was run over by a car saving you. Do you think finding another woman is fair to her? Before she died, she told you to take good care of me. It's only been a few years and you don't want to care for me anymore. Do you have any conscience?" I knew those words would stab deep into his heart, causing him immense pain. Sure enough, seeing me cry, his eyes quickly reddened, and he dared not say anything more. From then on, he never dared to mention doing business with me again. Now my father looked at me, still with a hint of doubt. "Are you really serious?" "Of course, I am, Dad," I affirmed. "I think what you said makes a lot of sense. Now is the era of reform and opening up, an era for modern women. I also want my own career. I want to be independent and self-reliant." In my previous life, my father had poured all his money into helping Ethan Hayes rise to a leadership position in his unit. Ethan, in turn, used that money to send his white moonlight to study, while constantly using the excuse that there was no one at home to take care of things, trapping me at home and wasting my youth. Later, in old age, he looked at me with eyes full of disgust, finding fault with everything. He frequently uttered bitter, contemptuous words. Look at yourself. What else can you do with your life besides washing, cooking, and serving others? He was even crueler when he said, I've supported you your entire life. You're just a parasite, only knowing how to cling to men, relying on them to get by. Then he compared me to his white moonlight. How can you compare to Yvonne Fang? She's well-educated, beautiful, knowledgeable, and has her own career. At that time, I wore a coarse, faded cloth jacket, my rough, calloused hands gripping its hem. I felt utterly ashamed and insecure. Yvonne Fang stood right beside me, the same age, yet on her there were no traces of time. Her custom-made kippah accentuated her perfect figure. She was so beautiful that one couldn't tear their eyes away. At that moment, I felt utterly ordinary, so inferior. But without my father's sacrifice, without his financial support, without me taking on all the household chores and stabilizing his home front, would he have achieved his position today? Yet he never saw my silent sacrifices. In his eyes, there was only disgust. He mercilessly scolded me, venting all his frustrations on me for half an hour, until Yvonne Fang gently interjected. That's enough, Ethan. Sister-in-law still needs some face, after all. Don't scold her in front of so many people. Ethan Hayes, hearing this, snorted coldly, full of disdain. He brazenly declared, In my heart, asterisk your family, she is just a stranger. She and he flirted openly right in front of me, and not only that, they shamelessly exchanged passionate kisses. As their emotions reached a peak, Ethan Hayes clumsily fumbled to unbutton Yvonne Fang's kippah. But suddenly, he looked up and caught sight of me standing frozen, completely disoriented. He immediately roared furiously, What are you looking at? Get out of my sight? I practically flew out of there. Such humiliating disgrace happened more than once. After my father passed away, I lost my only support. Life became precarious, and I had no means of livelihood. I could only swallow my resentment and try to get through each day. I told myself that my daughter was still my flesh and blood. I just needed to wait a little longer, until she graduated from college, then I would leave this living hell with her. But who knew I had raised an ungrateful wolf? She married Yvonne Fang's son, went out of her way to curry favor with her mother-in-law, and joined her in bullying me, the very mother who had given birth to her and raised her. Even after Yvonne Fang died from a terrible venereal disease, and Ethan Hayes tragically followed her in death, my daughter turned around and blamed me. She believed I had usurped Yvonne Fang's position in the Hayes family, preventing the two of them from being buried together in the afterlife. When I fell gravely ill and was confined to a hospital bed, it was she who heartlessly pulled out my oxygen tube. Having lived through such a tragic life, I finally understood the wisdom my father often reminded me of. Relying on anyone is not as good as relying on yourself. In the past few days, I had been following my father, working late into the night, diligently learning everything about business. Ethan Hayes waited at home for 7 days straight, but I never came to find him. That evening, as I returned home, he blocked my path right at the door. Jade Shen, you've been angry for long enough. Overdoing it will only ruin the fun. I retorted coldly, a good dog doesn't block the path. With that, I pushed him aside and walked into the house. Jade Shen, Ethan Hayes gritted his teeth. I've come to find you, don't push your luck. He threatened, if you dare to cause any more trouble, I truly won't marry you. Looking at the faded work shirt he was wearing, I rolled my eyes in disdain. Ethan Hayes, aren't you a bit too overconfident? Isn't that shirt you're wearing the one I bought you last year? With your pathetic conditions, why on earth would I be crazy enough to throw myself into your house and suffer? He stubbornly defended himself. I know you're making a fuss like this just to get me to coax you. Now that I've come to coax you, don't push your luck. Overdoing it just makes people disgusted. At this point, I fully realized that Ethan Hayes was fundamentally not a human being. Otherwise, how could he be so utterly incapable of understanding basic human communication? I was tired of wasting words on him, so I turned to enter the house and slam the door shut. He quickly grabbed my arm. Jade Shen, stop pretending with me. If I wasn't in your heart, why wouldn't you agree to the blind date partners that Mr. Wang introduced to you? In the past 2 days, Mr. Wang had indeed introduced me to 3 potential partners, and their conditions were not bad at all. At least they didn't have as many tangled problems as Ethan Hayes' family, but I knew that the future of all 3 of these men would not be good. 2 of them were addicted to gambling, and 1 died unexpectedly. How could I entrust the happiness of the latter, half of my life, to such people? I forcefully shook Ethan Hayes's hand off and said coldly, "Whether I approve or not, what does that have to do with you?" Ethan Hayes laughed aloud, full of self-satisfaction. "You don't approve? Isn't it because I'm already in your heart? You're determined to marry me, aren't you?" Overwhelmed with anger, I kicked him squarely in the crotch. This scoundrel was truly as clingy as a leech. It was infuriating. I quickly ran to the house next door. Fortunately, my father's colleague's son had just returned from work. I grabbed him and urgently asked, "When we were children, you once said you wanted to marry me. Does that promise still hold true?" Daniel Gu was completely stunned by my sudden action, frozen in place. I looked him straight in the eye and asked again, resolutely, "I'm serious. You really meant it when you said you wanted to marry me before, didn't you?" I knew that in my previous life, Daniel Gu had remained unmarried his entire life, and I had advised him many times. He would just look at me as if wanting to say something, but then he would stop. It wasn't until I passed away, my soul freely wandering in the in-between, that I witnessed firsthand that he was the one who handled my funeral. He personally collected my body, bought me a beautiful plot of land for my peaceful rest. He knelt before my tombstone, crying in anguish, confessing that he had loved me for a very long time and could never marry anyone else in this life because he couldn't forget me. Meanwhile, I had married Ethan Hayes, suffered a lifetime of torment from the Hayes family, and even in death found no peace. He swore he would avenge me, returning everything I had endured. Later, he found Stella Hayes, an adopted daughter. He used evidence showing Stella abusing Ethan Hayes's name for personal gain and that she had pulled my oxygen tube to harm me. He had Stella imprisoned. Finally, he took his own life right in front of my tombstone. He said he couldn't bear for me to be lonely down there alone and wanted to join me. But at that time, I was just an invisible soul, unable to stop him. After he passed away, my soul also vanished. I secretly swore that if there was a next life, I would definitely marry him. After Daniel Gu regained his composure, he nodded joyfully. "Of course, it still holds true." "That's great then. Let's go register our marriage right now." I quickly took out my household register and ID card, thrusting them into Daniel Gu's hands. "You hurry and find your ID card and household register. I want to settle everything as soon as possible, to make Ethan Hayes understand clearly that I truly don't need him to find someone to marry." As soon as I stepped into the Civil Affairs Bureau, I heard a loud quarrel echoing from inside the room. "Yvonne, don't cry. So what if he doesn't want you? So what if you're divorced? I'll take care of you from now on." That was Ethan Hayes's voice. It turned out his white moonlight, Yvonne Fang, had just been abandoned and divorced by her husband's family. She wanted to marry and register with Ethan Hayes, and Ethan Hayes was comforting her in his arms. "Yvonne, you are a free bird, soaring in the sky, meant to go out and explore the world. My home is a mess right now. I can't bear to tie you down with a marriage certificate. I have to marry another woman to help me take care of my parents, my daughter, and us too. But don't worry, only you are in my heart. Even if I get married, I won't touch her." Yvonne Fang, hearing his coaxing, stopped crying and smiled. She shyly leaned her head against Ethan Hayes's chest, lightly punching him. "If you treat her like that, what if she finds out and gets angry?" Ethan Hayes didn't care, responding nonchalantly, "I've already fulfilled her wish, agreeing to marry her. What more could she want?" I was shaking with anger. The her they just mentioned was none other than me. It turned out Ethan Hayes agreed to marry me only for these selfish reasons. He couldn't bear to have his white moonlight bound by marriage, so he decided to torment me my entire life to fulfill his desires and those of his mistress. Tears of humiliation streamed down my cheeks. Daniel Gu gently held me in his arms, comforting me. "Jade, don't worry. I will love you well for this entire life." He gently wiped away the tears from my face. I looked at him, trying to stop crying and smile. Yes, in this life, the person I truly want to marry must be someone who loves me wholeheartedly. I suffered too much in my previous life. In this life, I must live happily. No scoundrel like Ethan Hayes will have anything to do with me anymore. I gripped Daniel Gu's hand, and together we walked into the main hall. "Hello, I'm here to register my marriage." Hearing my voice, Ethan Hayes started and turned to look at me. He pointed at my face, cursing, "Jade Shen, do you have no shame? You haven't even agreed to the conditions I set, and you've already rushed here, chasing after me, demanding to register our marriage." The clerk looked up at Ethan Hayes, hesitating. "Comrade, are you?" Ethan Hayes glared at him, snarling, "My wife and I are arguing. It's none of your business. Don't be a busybody." The clerk pursed his lips and shook his head in resignation. I quickly smiled apologetically at him and said, "Just process his paperwork quickly." Ethan Hayes shot me another sideways glance, his tone resentful. "I'm telling you, Jade Shen, chasing me to this civil affairs bureau is useless. I've changed my mind again. The dowry must be an additional 1,000 yuan. If you don't agree, I won't register our marriage today." Ethan Hayes' brazenness and shamelessness reached a point where even the civil affairs officer handling the marriage registration was utterly astonished. After a moment of dumbfounded silence, the officer couldn't help but speak, his voice full of surprise. "Comrade Ethan Hayes, I'm afraid you've made a mistake. The person Comrade Jade Shen is registering her marriage with is not you. The name on the documents is Comrade Daniel Gu." Ethan Hayes was struck dumb, like a bolt from the blue, his eyes wide with disbelief and extreme confusion. "Daniel Gu? Which Daniel Gu? How can Jade Shen marry someone else? No way, that's impossible," he stammered, words caught in his throat. Only then did Ethan Hayes notice the presence of another man standing beside me. His gaze left me, shifting to scrutinize the other man, Daniel Gu. His eyelids lowered as he stared intently at our clasped hands. My hand and Daniel Gu's were intertwined intimately and openly. No, this can't be right. There must be a mistake here." He finally started reacting, his tone full of disbelief and despair. "Jade Shen loves me, she loves me to death. She even defied everything, risked her life to force her father to propose to me. You people don't understand," he roared, stubbornly denying the reality unfolding before his eyes. "She even told me all her family's secrets and private matters just to marry me. How? How could she willingly marry someone else? It's impossible." He shook his head frantically, his face showing clear signs of panic and loss of control. Suddenly, as if remembering something, Ethan Hayes burst into a loud, mocking, self-satisfied laugh. "I understand now. I knew it all along. Jade Shen must have felt humiliated by what I said yesterday, felt hurt, so today she intentionally found someone to pretend to be a groom to force me to marry her, right?" He considered himself clever, concocting a completely erroneous scenario. He pushed Yvonne Fang, who was standing beside him, aside and lunged to grab my hand. "Jade Shen, I admit you're quite clever. I didn't expect you to come up with this trick. Although your method is a bit lowly, I admit you've won. I lose, Jade Shen." His voice was still full of arrogance. I agree to register our marriage today. After we register, I'll organize a grand wedding to make it up to you. But don't forget, your family must add another 1,000 yuan to the dowry." He spoke as if bestowing a favor. Slap, without a shred of mercy, I yanked my hand away from his and delivered a resounding slap to his face. The powerful blow echoed in the space, expressing my indignation and disgust for this man. At this moment, the clerk had finished processing the marriage certificate. I took it, opened it, and thrust it directly in front of Ethan Hayes for him to see clearly. "Ethan Hayes, I've made it very clear to you. I, Jade Shen, never wanted to marry you. Now I am a married woman, married to the man I love. Please stop bothering my life." My voice was as cold as ice. "If you dare to disturb me again, I will report this matter to your unit. Take care of yourself." My words were sharp and decisive, giving him no opportunity to fantasize. Ethan Hayes stared at the marriage certificate, his eyes wide with horror. He shook his head frantically, desperately trying to deny the harsh reality laid before him. His eyes suddenly reddened, tears of late regret welling up. No way, this isn't real, there must be some mistake," he shrieked, his voice hoarse with pain and despair. He turned to look at Daniel Gu, his eyes full of mockery and contempt. "How much she loved me, everyone in this village knows. You think she chose you because she likes you. Don't delude yourself. She's just using you to provoke me, to make me jealous, to make me marry her." Before he could finish his sentence, Daniel Gu delivered a powerful punch to Ethan Hayes' face. "Even if she is using me, I do so willingly. At least now we are married, she is my wife." Daniel Gu snarled, his eyes burning with furious anger. "If you dare to bother her again, I won't be so polite." The forceful punch knocked out one of Ethan Hayes' teeth. He clutched his mouth in pain and humiliation, hastily running towards the nearby clinic to bandage his wound. "Jade Shen, I know you're still angry with me. I'll wait until your anger subsides." "I won't give up on you," he muttered as he ran, his words full of stubbornness and delusion. The next day, I truly understood the meaning of Ethan Hayes' words, "I won't give up on you." He came to my father with a stack of photos, his face full of cunning and triumph. "Uncle Shen, look at your good daughter." At that time, I had just married, and she came to seduce me, enticing me to make a mistake. He told my father, his tone full of slander and blame, "If you don't want these photos to be exposed and damage your family's reputation, then agree to my demands. Tell Jade Shen to divorce Daniel Gu and marry me. I won't accept anything less than 2,000 yuan for the dowry." He brazenly laid out his conditions to my father, exploiting my family's weaknesses to achieve his personal goals. My father saw the photos and his anger erupted. He almost couldn't breathe. He hurriedly ran to Daniel Gu's house, dragged me home, and ordered me to divorce Daniel Gu immediately. I was bewildered, not understanding what was happening. "Dad, I don't care what Ethan Hayes told you, but please believe me. In this life, I will never divorce Daniel Gu," I resolutely told my father. It was then that my father showed me the photos Ethan Hayes had given him. In the pictures, I was kissing Ethan Hayes. He claimed, "At that time, I had just married and your daughter seduced me." My father angrily said, "I was boiling with rage when I saw those photos." It turned out that at that time, Ethan Hayes had indeed just gotten married. His wife couldn't endure the circumstances and living conditions at his house and demanded a divorce. He took leave, preparing to return to his unit, but he was worried there was no one at home to care for him. The two had an angry argument and a fight, which resulted in him being injured and hospitalized. He dared not let his unit know about this embarrassing incident. Since he had no money to pay for medical expenses and no one to care for him, he had someone trick me into coming, begging me to stay and take care of him. The photos were taken when I was checking his wound. He said he wanted to preserve these beautiful moments and would repay me later. Who knew he would use these very photos to threaten me and my family? My trust at that time was purely directed towards him, free of any calculations of gain or loss. Yet beyond all imagination, Ethan Hayes used those very photos, taken that day, with such wicked intent to threaten me. A lump of anger surged in my throat. I threw the stack of photos at him, spitting out in indignation, "Is this how you repay me?" I continued, my voice laced with bitterness. "It's true I once liked you, but from a young age, my father taught me to live honorably and virtuously." I emphasized once more to affirm my resolve. "Knowing you were already settled, I never once harbored thoughts of getting involved with you." I recalled and exposed the truth. "You were injured, begging me to pay your hospital fees, pleading with me to care for you. Seeing you pitiful, I agreed to help. Now you say you want to repay me, but it turns out you repay me with these manipulated, utterly false photos to threaten me?" Finally, I couldn't suppress my disappointment and disgust. "Ethan Hayes, you are more despicable and shameless than I ever imagined." Contrary to my expectations, his face remained calm, his heart showing no rapid beat. He responded calmly as if bargaining for an item. "Jade Shen, I've already told Uncle Shen my conditions. You have 3 days to give me a clear answer, otherwise, I'll make sure these photos spread to every corner of every street." Ethan Hayes sneered at Daniel Gu, then placed a hand on his shoulder, patting it meaningfully. He began spreading baseless rumors, intending to tarnish my reputation. Before, she also tried to seduce me like that, just because she wanted to be my wife. I wonder what tricks she used to bewitch you, probably initiated hugs and flirtations, right? I angrily retorted, "You're talking nonsense." Before I could finish, Daniel Gu exploded in a fit of rage, charging forward and mercilessly punching and kicking Ethan Hayes. He yelled as he fought, "I trust Jade Shen. I married her because I truly love her. I was the one who begged her to marry me. If you dare to fabricate any more lies or slander about her, I will cripple you." Daniel Gu's absolute trust, without a hint of doubt, made me feel completely safe. For the first time in my life, I tasted love, and it was surprisingly gentle and sweet. He and I went to the hospital where Ethan Hayes had been treated years ago to clarify everything. Back then, fearing malicious gossip, I had to impersonate Ethan Hayes' sister to stay at the hospital and care for him. Furthermore, there were always other patients in the room, so we never had a chance to be alone. The photos were merely taken because Ethan Hayes said he wanted them as souvenirs, asking the other patients in the room to take them. A hospital room has 4 people. All 3 patients in the room and their family members can attest to what I'm saying. Ethan Hayes was completely dumbfounded after hearing this. Daniel Gu intended to write a report and send it to Ethan's superiors. Ethan Hayes immediately knelt down, clutching Daniel Gu's pant leg. "I beg for forgiveness. Jade, I was wrong," he explained miserably. "I did all of that only because I wanted to marry you. You should have been my wife. How could you marry someone else? I couldn't accept it, which is why I had such wicked thoughts, wanting to force you to marry me." He continued pleading, "Jade, for the sake of your many years of liking me, please forgive me this one time," he cried tragically. "If you report this to my unit, my life will be over. I beg you." Ethan Hayes's face was streaked with tears and snot. Daniel Gu looked at me, gently asking for my opinion. "If you can't bear it, then let's just let it go." I turned my face away, trying to avoid Ethan Hayes's gaze, and shook my head resolutely. "I can't just let it go like that. If you do wrong, you must pay the price. If you repay kindness with malice, what kind of morality is that? Moreover, compared to the harm he caused me in my previous life, what is this little bit of trouble to him?" Ethan Hayes was expelled from his unit. He would never again have the opportunity to achieve the accomplishments he had in his previous life. Angry, he drank himself into a stupor at a bar, and on his way home, he fell and broke a bone. Due to the severe injury, he had to use crutches for the rest of his life. Yvonne Fang cared for him for 3 days but couldn't stand it anymore. She abandoned him and wanted to leave. In my previous life, he had used the money my father painstakingly earned to send Yvonne Fang to study abroad. Thanks to my father's financial backing, he was able to climb to a leadership position in his unit. The two of them, successful by middle age, reconnected, cherished each other, and became each other's soulmates. In this life, without my family's financial support, Ethan Hayes had become a cripple. How could Yvonne Fang possibly be willing to stay by his side? He desperately pleaded, "Yvonne, Jade Shen has married someone else. I can't be with her anymore. Are you also going to abandon me and leave?" he asked sorrowfully. "Was all the love and all the vows we made in our previous life fake?" "Of course it was fake," Yvonne Fang replied without hesitation, her face openly showing disgust. "From the very beginning, I was just using you. In my previous life, you had wealth and power. You could give me the luxurious life I dreamed of, so of course I had to pretend to love you. But what about now?" Ethan Hayes asked in pain. Yvonne Fang disdainfully looked him up and down. "Look at yourself. From now on, you'll just be a cripple, a useless invalid. Moreover," she continued to twist the knife, "you're a crippled man who made a mistake, got fired from your unit, and can't find a decent job. I'm still young and beautiful. How can I waste my entire life marrying a useless man like you and living a miserable, impoverished life?" "Ethan Hayes, stop deluding yourself," Yvonne Fang snapped. "I'm about to leave here for a bigger city, a bustling metropolis. I will definitely find a perfect match for myself, someone who can give me a bright future." She pulled a single yuan coin from her pocket and tossed it at Ethan Hayes's feet. "Consider this money a thank you for the years you cared for me." Ethan Hayes was shaking with rage. "When I first started working, my monthly salary was only 6 yuan. I sent half of it to you, keeping only a meager half for myself and my family. Later, when my salary increased to 15 yuan a month, I still didn't forget you," he snarled. "I worked for 5 years and gave you so much money, and now you're giving me 1 yuan back. Yvonne Fang, do you think I'm a beggar?" Ethan Hayes roared. Yvonne Fang smirked, picked up the coin, and put it back in her pocket. "You're not even as good as a beggar. You're just a dog licking my feet. If you don't want this 1 yuan, then I'll take it back." She turned and calmly walked away, leaving Ethan Hayes in agony and despair. Before leaving, she looked back and warned Ethan Hayes never to bother her again. When Yvonne Fang opened the door, she unexpectedly saw me standing there. Yvonne Fang forced a fake smile, intentionally speaking loudly to Ethan Hayes. "Look, your dog-licking, head-over-heels lover is here." Then she deliberately elbowed me hard in the shoulder. I was about to give her a piece of my mind, but Ethan Hayes quickly grabbed my hand. "Jade, I knew you couldn't stay away from me. You came to visit me, didn't you?" He forced a strained smile. I forcefully yanked my hand away from his, feeling disgusted. "Don't flatter yourself," I replied coldly. "I came here for a health checkup. Stop deceiving yourself." Ethan Hayes chuckled dismissively. "Your health is excellent, as strong as an ox. You served my parents at home and cared for our adopted daughter Stella for so many years without ever getting sick. What are you checking up on? I know I'm still in your heart. You're just looking for an excuse to visit me." I don't know where Ethan Hayes' confidence came from. I didn't want to hear him babble anymore, so I took out my health checkup form and showed it to him. "See clearly." I'm pregnant and here for a prenatal checkup. Coincidentally, the obstetrics department is on this floor. What a coincidence to run into you, I said sarcastically. Ethan Hayes's eyes reddened, his face completely disbelieving. He mumbled to himself, How? How could you really let go of me? Because after living another life, I've seen your true colors, I retorted. I turned to leave, but Ethan Hayes suddenly fell to his knees in front of me, blocking my path. Jade, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Only now do I realize that in this world, you are the only one who truly treated me well. You can hit me, scold me, whatever you want, just please don't leave me. In my previous life, I waited 30 years and never heard these words. In this life, he finally said them. Alas, it was all too late. Ethan Hayes, I no longer need you, I stated decisively. When Daniel Gu learned I was pregnant, he hugged me, spinning me around in absolute joy. Wife, from now on, you just rest at home and take care of yourself. I'll handle all the money-making. He said he planned to resign from the factory and go into business with my father. I thought about it for a moment and completely agreed with him. The textile factory he currently worked at would no longer be economically viable by the mid to late 1990s, and the risk of layoffs was very high. Furthermore, my father's business was expanding rapidly and truly lacked help. If Daniel Gu could join, my father would undoubtedly be overjoyed. Okay, go through the resignation procedures these next few days, and then our family of 3 will move to City H, my father said with a beaming smile, unable to hide his happiness. Ever since Daniel Gu and I got married, seeing how much he loved and adored me, my father's face glowed with joy all day long, looking even younger than last year. Daniel Gu went to the factory to handle his resignation, while I stayed home, packing our belongings, preparing for our new life. Unexpectedly, Ethan Hayes stormed straight into our house. Jade, I've been thinking for a very long time, truly a very long time. Throughout that endlessly long period, I couldn't forget you, couldn't shake your image from my mind. I beg you, please give me another chance to atone for my mistakes. Can you accept my proposal and build a home with me? He choked out, his voice trembling as he pleaded. In my past life, I committed terrible sins, betrayed you, caused you so much pain. Perhaps heaven has taken pity on me, granting me a chance to start over, precisely so I can make amends for the harm I caused in the past. He continued to repeat his plea, his eyes pleading. Jade, please give me a chance so I can atone for my mistakes and compensate you for your losses. He knelt before me, his hands trembling, furiously slapping himself across the face repeatedly. I know you hate me to the core. I'll hit myself. I'll keep going until you forgive me. His hand force was incredibly strong. In just a moment, both his cheeks swelled up and his mouth began to bleed. Witnessing his frantic, out-of-control actions, I was so frightened that I momentarily didn't know what to do, completely stunned. Suddenly, a sentence I had once read in a book in my past life flashed through my mind. He will beg you, he will even kneel at your feet, he can even slap himself mercilessly. He will swear over and over again. Men are the creatures who love to swear the most, but their oaths are merely like a dog's barking. He will never change. All he is doing now is simply the result of a careful calculation of benefits and harms. Did Ethan Hayes truly love me? I don't think so. Perhaps his current pathetic, desperate appearance was only because he had no other options, and I was the only one who could help him out of this quagmire. It was simply that. Someone who truly loves you would never use such crazy, bizarre actions to force you to accept their affection. I trembled as I picked up a sharp pair of scissors, pointing them directly at his face. Get out. If you don't leave immediately, I will kill you. Ethan Hayes sprang up from the ground, startled, his eyes filled with resentment. I've humbled myself to this extent, and you still won't forgive me? He didn't seem to feel any fear. He even moved closer to me. His voice became threatening. Jade Shen, don't push your luck. If you don't meekly obey me today, I will die with you. He snatched the scissors from my hand and threw them hard to the ground. His eyes showed a crazy glint. He roughly pushed me onto the table, tearing my clothes. I'll make you mine. Let's see if Daniel Gu still wants you then. I struggled desperately, trying to escape his grasp. Fortunately, before Daniel Gu could return, I managed with all my strength to prevent his depraved act. Ethan Hayes was then arrested by the security team. Later, I learned that after he was released from the hospital, the first thing he did was seek out Yvonne Fang. After brutally humiliating her, he locked her in the house and set it on fire, attempting to fabricate a tragic accident to deceive the public. I went through a terrifying ordeal. I almost miscarried and had to be hospitalized for a long time to stabilize the pregnancy. When I heard this news, I was truly shocked and horrified. Daniel Gu hugged me tightly, his shoulders trembling. "It's all my fault. I should have kept you by my side at all times, not letting you suffer any harm. It's all right, Ethan Hayes has been sentenced to death. He won't have any more opportunities to cause you trouble." I shook my head, leaning into his embrace for comfort. He reaped what he sowed. He deserved it. After I was discharged from the hospital, we quickly packed our belongings and moved to City H unexpectedly. Ethan Hayes' mother brought Stella Hayes to find us. She knelt before our door, begging me for help. "Jade Shen, Ethan made a mistake and he has to pay for it, but his father and I are both disabled. Now that he's dead, our lives have no guarantees anymore." She cried tragically, her voice full of despair. "Please take us with you." Stella Hayes, only 3 years old at the time, mimicked Ethan Hayes' mother, kneeling on the ground, crying and demanding I adopt her, asking me to take her along. Ethan's father only has a broken leg, and she is only blind in one eye. They haven't completely lost their ability to work. If they put in a little effort, they can earn enough to feed and clothe themselves. It's not a problem, I replied coldly to their pleas. "You and I have no relation whatsoever. Why do you keep clinging to me?" I completely refused their unreasonable request. Immediately, Ethan's mother changed her attitude, becoming fierce and bitter. She shrieked, "Jade Shen, my son's death was indirectly caused by you. Now that he's dead, who will support us in our old age, you absolutely must take responsibility." I almost burst out laughing when I heard that. Her son violated the law himself, causing his own consequences. Why dump it all on me? It was pointless to argue with such people. I gently tugged Daniel Gu's sleeve, gesturing, "Don't bother with them." "Let's go." Ethan's mother tried to grab me, but was pushed away by Daniel Gu. Our family of 3 got into the car. As the car started and began to move, a figure suddenly lunged out and blocked our way. Bang! Fortunately, Daniel Gu reacted quickly and braked in time, but the person who rushed out was still hit and fell to the ground. Daniel Gu quickly got out to check the situation, and I anxiously followed. The person lay writhing on the ground, screaming tragically, "Murder! Murder!" When she saw me, she immediately wiped away her tears and changed her tone, speaking to me with cunning in her voice. "If you agree to take me with you, I won't pursue this matter anymore." I clenched my fists, my knuckles white. This ungrateful, treacherous woman, she harmed me in my previous life. Wasn't that tragic enough? Why does she still want to cling to me in this life? Ethan's mother also took the opportunity to chime in, her voice full of instigation. That's right. Stella is right. Jade Shen, you should consider the situation and choose wisely." My father witnessed this scene and was so angry he almost fainted. He said with a trembling voice, "I've been in business for many years and met all kinds of people, but I've truly never seen anyone as shameless and brazen as your family." I gently patted my father's back, helping him calm down. "Dad, don't be angry. Getting angry over people like this isn't worth harming your health." I reassured my father, then turned and said, "I'll handle this." I immediately called the police and simultaneously took out a mini cassette recorder from my pocket, handing it to them as evidence. This is an audio recording of them staging an accident to extort money. The police quickly arrived and took Ethan's mother and Stella Hayes for investigation. With irrefutable evidence, Ethan's mother faced criminal charges and was detained pending trial. As Stella Hayes was too young, she was entrusted to her paternal grandfather's care. Our family continued our business in City H, stable and thriving. Reborn once more, thanks to the advantage of knowing market information and investment opportunities in advance, all the business projects I proposed brought in huge profits. After our business developed strongly, we decided to build our own manufacturing factory and then took the company public, marking a significant step forward in our career. Our children were also raised very well, becoming useful members of society. Life in this life was truly happy and fulfilling, free from the worries and insecurities of the past.